everyone, welcome to another episode of Academic Misfits, where we talk about the way that maybe we've not fit into academia, but we're creating new ways of living now. And I love the inspirational stories that I'm getting from people about how they're thriving in or out of academia, just accepting that they're just a misfit and misfits unite. So I'm all for it. The other thing is, yes, introducing myself. I forgot to do that in the first two episodes. So I'm Luna Munoz, and I did my PhD in the US, came to the UK thinking that academia would be different here. It was not. I ended up leaving academia in 2021 and set up my own business in coaching and consultancy. And since my PhD is in applied developmental psychology, I've been doing a lot more with young people and getting them to think big early on and to embrace all parts of themselves, because I feel like us misfits weren't allowed to do that. So I'm going to have a conversation with Dr. Paulina Trevena. I don't know, I've said it in a Spanish way, but it just comes out sometimes. And so yes, we're going to go ahead and get started. So here we are. Paulina, welcome. So, I feel like we've done this multiple times where you've been on live streams with me, and I'm so excited to do this one because I feel like we both know a little bit more about who we are outside of academia. And so this is perfect time to have you on. I'm welcoming Paulina Trevena. Go ahead and tell people who you are and why you're here today.
Hi, Luna. Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. So I'm here because you wanted to talk to me. And I think I've got quite a unique story to share, right? And so I am an ex-academic. I was a researcher, a social scientist for 18 years. I am now a hypnotherapist, ADHD coach, and a researcher still, but on aphantasia, which is a lack of mental imagery, especially the ability to visualize.
Ooh, I know. I want to hear more about that eventually. We'll have to do another one of these. But yeah, thank you for coming on. And I know we're going to have a big conversation about ways that both of us have felt similarly like misfits, especially your ADHD coaching. So I can't wait to hear about that and the listeners. So I like to start out with, do you feel like a misfit? Because it's called Academic Misfits. Yeah. Some of us feel like we've maybe been an imposter, or we feel like academia hasn't been made for us. But, what was academia like for you?
So I think I love the Misfits Unite, which you said in the beginning, because I feel a lot of us are misfits, and I kind of feel like I'm a misfit on multiple layers. And I used to think it's because of my mixed family background. I'm half English, half Polish, lived in both countries. I've lost my kind of English accent. So anytime I open my mouth in the UK and people ask me where I'm from and I say Guildford, they go, "That's not a Surrey accent." So I feel I have to tell my life story every single time. But I felt like a misfit always, really, one way or another. And I wasn't quite sure why. As I say, for many years, I thought it was because of my background, my family background, because I was quite unique in England at the time. There weren't many mixed Polish-English couples, and I was very unique in a communist country, coming from a Western country. It was almost like everybody was escaping, and we moved back, so it was a bit crazy. But anyway, coming back to academia, and I'll mention the ADHD in a moment, because I think in the beginning, I felt very much at home, not as much in academia, but as in research, because I'd started off as a researcher and I worked in a research center for migration research in Poland. And I just love research. I always have, and I always will, right? So my introduction to academia was a bit non-academic. I was working on academic projects. I specialized in international migration, traveled to different countries to do the research, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it because I love doing research. I'm a qualitative researcher. I love speaking to people, doing focus groups, recruiting people for studies, observing, all that kind of stuff. I absolutely love. But then I kind of got into academia through being a researcher, and I moved to the UK, started working at the University of Southampton, and that's when I think the academic reality started hitting me. That was back in 2009. I was very, very busy in the beginning. I was still finishing my PhD. I moved with a young child. As a single parent. I had a lot going on. So a lot of it was I was in survival mode, and I was just trying to finish my PhD, do my work where I had to do field work in different parts of the UK. I was traveling, having moved to a country I'd not lived in for 29 years. It was a lot. It was a lot. So I think I didn't quite realize the ins and outs of academia. I didn't quite understand the game. And my thinking was, if I'm good, if I prove myself, I'm going to be offered another job. So when my 3-year contract came up and ended basically, and people were trying to help me to keep me on, and I got a little bit on another project here and a little bit on another project there and there. And then I remember I went for 6 interviews, all academic interviews, and I didn't get any of the jobs. That was all at the same university. And I felt really, really disheartened. And every single time I got the same feedback, and it was, we know you can do the job. You're like super professional and we know you'd be good at this, but there's somebody who fits the requirements, exactly, and you don't, because these jobs were outside my niche. And I think what really got me at the time was that with one of the jobs and one of the interviews, I'd actually finished off a project for them. I did in 10 weeks something that somebody wasn't able to do in 3 years. And they were super impressed. They were super impressed. And it was actually arranging interviews in schools, secondary schools, which is not easy, believe me. And in such a short space of time to do the whole research, interviews, analysis, right? And they were super, super impressed, but I didn't get the job.
I think I saw today on Instagram, that there was a meme or something that said that when you have an ADHD person doing a job for you, good luck trying to find someone to replace it, because it's probably 3 jobs that they're doing.
Exactly. And it was like a challenge, the time pressure and all that kind of stuff. And I'm very good. If I have a challenging job that I have to do under pressure, usually I just manage, because I do everything I can to get it done. And when I think back, I'm like, I've done some crazy things to actually complete these projects, which were really challenging, because I was working with so-called hidden, difficult to reach populations very often, right? International migrants, often working in rural areas. It honestly wasn't easy. I'd end up even knocking on farmers' doors sometimes, asking if they have people from Poland working for them. Wow. which let's say just didn't go down too well. But I was very ambitious. I really wanted to reach my targets. I really wanted to fulfill other people's expectations, I guess, and the brief I had and so on, right? So anyway, so I think that first experience, and then eventually I moved up all the way from Southampton to Glasgow for another academic job. And that reality, was a complete change, really. I'd uprooted again. I'd uprooted my kid again. I'd moved to the other side of the country, really, and it wasn't easy.
To a different country.
To a different country, yeah, basically to a different country. It's true, and everything was different, and it was really hard for me to find my feet. And there was some family issues as well. I was finding it really, really hard, and I was finding the next project I was working on hard, not because of the project team was great, the project was great, but it was just the necessity to be away from home quite a lot when my child wasn't well and was missing a lot of school. And it was really, really stressful for me, really stressful. And I think at the time, and I remember, when I was in between jobs and I couldn't find another job for, I think, 7 months after finishing my work at Southampton University. And that was a huge blow for me, huge blow, because I'd always worked, I relocated to another country for work. I'd finished my PhD and I felt like, of course I'll find another job. Like, of course, I'm good at this stuff, right? Why not? And then I couldn't find another job. When I was looking in academia, I started looking outside academia, but I didn't even know what kind of job to look for, because I'd been in this research for so long. But academic, already a few good years, but academic research, and I had these ambitions, right? So it was really hard. It was a big slap in the face, I have to say, and I think it kind of woke me up a bit to the academic reality and what a tough game it is, really.
Yeah.
And then, from the beginning, I'd worked at top universities, really, because the University of Southampton is, quite high up in the rankings. So is the University of Glasgow, to which I moved. And the reality started getting to me, basically, because I realized that, everybody's overwhelmed, everybody's overworked, people are stressed out all the time. And I realized that anybody who has a permanent job is even more stressed than me.
Yes.
And
I think you wrote about that, didn't you? I think I saw a post from you saying like we're overworked and underpaid.
Yeah. Well, basically, yes. And but I continued working at universities, basically, and shifting from project to project. And I think it became more and more challenging because with time I'd realized, okay, I don't want to go into a lectureship. I don't want that. I do not want to mainly teach. I love research. That's what I love. That's what I want to do. And I realized that there's not a path for me, really, professional path for me in academia, because, there are no permanent research jobs.
No.
There's a handful of people I know that have permanent research jobs, but that means they manage other people, mainly. Yeah. And, and I just observing other people and seeing how many hats they need to wear, it was completely overwhelming for me, because I'm good at managing my own project, my own stuff. I'm good when I have a line manager to say, oh, we need this in 3 months. Where are you with this? Where are you with that? Right? So I can work very independently. I can make a lot of stuff happen, but I have problems with kind of projecting things into the future, imagining, planning, and keeping on track sometimes. Sometimes I just need somebody else to set the structure. And at the time, I didn't yet realize I had ADHD. I only realized right towards the end of my academic career. But it really explained a lot to me, because it explained a few things. So it kind of explained to me why I've always been one leg in, one leg out, and I didn't want to get in with both legs because, as I say, I noticed how hard people are working, and I was working really hard, super hard as well. But when I looked at professors, lecturers, I thought, like my boss, for example, I remember from one of the universities, would not take more than a week's leave because they felt they couldn't, because if they did, they'd be behind with the book they're supposed to be writing during the summer and the article they're supposed to be writing and the research proposal. And I was thinking, that is crazy. This person is really high up, great person, great achievements, everything. And they feel they can't take more than a week off during the summer.
When I was up for redundancy, I'd been working there 5 years, 15 years in academia. And so I was senior lecturer with a permanent job, right, at University of Liverpool. And then I remember when I was up for redundancy, well, before that, I was in the union. I was one of the union representatives for psychology. And I helped a professor who couldn't go into work because of COVID and, issues with, vulnerability and things like that, helped him get out of it. And then when I was up for redundancy, I was like, could you please speak up for me? Like, this is not right. And it's, I can show you every single way that it's not accurate, what they're saying about the 80 something people that at first were up for redundancy. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry, Luna. I can't put my neck out like that. Full professor who was also director and director of like a lot of organizations across the UK. I don't want to name names, but he was like, I can't put my neck above the parapet. I'm going to be, I'm not going to have a job. I was like, you have a permanent job and you've been like a figure in the UK system. And from then I was like, wow, as much as we talk about taking risks and being state of the art and innovation, there's not much of that because people are afraid.
Yeah.
And and what you said about like when you keep working on people's projects, it's hard to then show when you look at the criteria for a job to be like, I match all of these because you've been working on this project and this project and this project. And I was like you, I was thinking because I didn't know I had ADHD until like, a year ago. I can't remember when I talked to you that I was like, oh my God. And then I said to my boyfriend, I was like, I've been speaking to Paulina and other people and I might have ADHD. And he just went, you think? Yeah. I always liked working on other people's projects with them. I could be really independent, like you said, but I really like that kind of like, we need this introduction by this time. We need this discussion by this time. We're going to do this. And I always thought, I'm not an innovator. I don't have creative ideas, but I'd love to hear what you think about that, because I found that really difficult to feel like I am making innovative decisions when I need structure from other people.
Do you know what? I think it's actually the other way around. I mean, we do need structure from other people, but just because we find it difficult to, it's the executive function, isn't it? We find it difficult to plan. And, but I don't think we lack creativity at all. I actually think we're much more creative than other people, which is sometimes, not to diss anyone, everybody can be creative or not. But I, for example, would always produce like hundreds of ideas and hundreds of ideas for new research. Like I'd be inspired by everything and just, this collaboration, that collaboration. Honestly, I just find links everywhere and ideas everywhere and pick up on the stuff, like find the links where other people couldn't quite see them. So I feel I was always a very kind of broad, big picture thinker, because I could connect the dots very often that weren't that obvious because other people were looking at a chunk, they were compartmentalizing. And I was always interdisciplinary. I worked across disciplines, which also backfired at some point. It's not, they say that they're open to innovation and interdisciplinary research and so on. And then it's like, oh, but you don't have a publication record in this. And it's just, I don't know, don't even get me started. But I think what started really getting to me in academia was I didn't feel I could be creative. I didn't feel I could be myself, because I always felt like I'm a bit of a silly academic because I like fun. I like to laugh. I like to make things fun.
And dance.
And dance. And laugh. And all kind of, all this fun element. And there's not that much scope for fun in academia. You're supposed to be professional and an expert and serious rather than fun.
Yes.
So I found that quite hard, I have to say. I can absolutely be the expert. I am the expert on many things, but I don't like being the serious kind of, expert.
I was going to ask you, what did you realize that you couldn't pretend? Like what made you realize? And I think that's true. Like, it's the creativity, it's the being myself, it's the wanting fun, it's the not wanting to be serious and an expert all the time. And I even hated the like expert, because I worked with so many experts by experience. You probably did too in the community, right? And it's like, I felt really awkward being like, I'm the one with the information. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I got so many people from the community involved in research because we had Liverpool experts by experience, but they fed into the curricula. And they fed into like the administration and selection of students for our DCLIN, but for our doctorate in clinical psychology. But they were like, oh, but they can't be involved in research, because that would be like, they wouldn't be able to have an input into that area of DCLIN. And I went in there and said, that's complete BS. And one of them actually then started to supervise research and had, his name on the publication and everything like that. I just, there's so much gatekeeping involved as well.
There's a lot of gatekeeping and way too much box ticking for me. Because I think I'm one of these people, and I do think it often comes with ADHD, that we like meaningful work. It has to have meaning. It has to make sense to us. If it doesn't make sense to us, we find it hard to work on it. And I think there was so much in academia where I was thinking, why are we doing this? As I said, I have a true passion for research. I still do. I don't think it'll ever go away, right? And I know I'm good at it. I know I am. But there was so much, there were these situations where I felt why do we need to do this? Why are we doing this? It doesn't make sense, because I'm a big believer in applied research. For me, the whole point of doing research was to then do something with it other than just publish academic papers. To be honest, that was the bit I was always least interested in. I have published. I've got a very good publication record. You have to, right? It's publish or publish. But that never gave me the satisfaction, never. I was much happier, if I was doing running some kind of community initiatives, as you say, doing something with the community, for the community, and I'd done that. And I would excel at things like public engagement, as I say, running community initiatives, knowledge exchange, impact. I was like huge on impact because I liked doing things that make sense, but that didn't get me anywhere, did it? At the end of the day, and I was feeling, I think increasingly over the years, I was just feeling more and more disenchanted, and less enthusiastic. And at some point, I remember I had this, I guess, breakthrough in my career in a way, because as I said, I'd been working on other people's projects for many years, right? And then applying for grants, I'm applying for grants with other people or by myself, all sorts of grants. And I kind of never got anything bigger. I got the ones that had an applied element in it. So I was an academic fellow with the Scottish Parliament, for example, a few years back. And then towards the end of my career, I was already kind of feeling deflated, I was feeling like the air's leaving the balloon. And there's not much I can do about it. I was feeling flatter and flatter and flatter about everything. And I remember I made this kind of last minute decision. I saw a call, from the Scottish government for projects, and I thought, oh, that really ties in with the project that I've just been working on. And I know that, I'm the one who often does the impact stuff and the knowledge exchange. And once I leave that project, that's just all going to be lost. So I was kind of feeling, oh, let's connect this, let's do this project. And I applied for an expert review as the lead, right? As the project, or whatever you call them. I forgot. Not project manager. What is it? PI. Yeah, whatever it is.
Principal investigator.
Yeah, principal investigator. And I got the project. And instead of feeling like, woohoo, I got the project and it's competitive and it's like for a, reputable, all the stuff, prestigious and so on, I was like, oh my God, now I'm going to have to do it. And it's a lot of work. And I remember that. I just remember that feeling. And that's when I think it really hit me. I thought, right, Paulina, it's time to go. It is time to go. Because I remember that years ago, my first career was in teaching. I was a teacher of English as a foreign language, and I loved it for many years. And then I started losing patience for my students and for explaining the same things, millionth time. And I really felt that. And at some point, I knew, I think one of my groups asked for a change of teacher. That had never happened to me. Like, students had always loved me. I'd always got really good feedback and so on. And I was thinking, right, okay, obviously it's time to leave. Obviously, if this is happening and I'm feeling it, it's time to leave. Let somebody else do it. Yes. And I think the same feeling came to me at that point, because I was just like, right, why am I not over the moon about this when it is, it's a really good opportunity, it's prestigious, it's all the things. Why am I not feeling over the moon? Why am I feeling already overwhelmed?
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of times, like, you feel like this resentment or the loss of patience. And a lot of that has to do with, like, maybe we're in burnout because we're being asked to do a million things and not the things that we find easy for us, because, like the public engagement, knowledge exchange, if you'd been doing more of that, or you had that grant compartmentalized where you were doing such and such and you really enjoyed that part, I wonder if there's like a better way to kind of say, these are the skills that you have and the strengths that you have, and build in more collaboration in academia, because I felt always like, well, who's the principal investigator? Okay, well, all three of us are leading in this project. Well, that can't happen because I have a tick box that says one of you has to be the lead.
Yeah.
And you're like, no. And they're like, well, who has more percentage? And we're like, no, we each have 33.3333333% infinity percent. And I don't know. What do you think about that? Because I'm realizing that now that I always love to write collaboratively, do research collaboratively, and not have somebody be the PI. And I don't know whether that was me just being rebellious.
Which is also an ADHD trait, right? Rebel against the system if you don't agree with it. I agree, because I always felt I like collaboration. I like collaborating with others, and I like to be on an equal plane with others, as in, equal grounds, basically. I don't like this hierarchies and, I'm higher and you're lower, and it's not because I'm the one who's always lower. I just don't like that kind of thinking, and I do not like, and I also realized that, I was quite lucky with most of the teams I worked with and so on, but there's also quite a lot. I mean, it's a competitive environment, right? There's no two ways about that. It's a competitive environment. You're in competition with other people for grants, for permanent positions, for everything. And that was kind of getting to me as well, because I'm much more of a collaborator than a competitor, so to speak. And also I just felt, what you said a moment ago, I just felt like, I know I'm pretty awesome at research. I know it. And I know I have a talent for connecting with others. And as I say, pulling stuff together and bringing stuff into the world, right? Whether it's public engagement or knowledge exchange or whatever. But I always felt like I'm a bit stupid in academia. I always felt like I cannot be an expert in my own right, because I have to tick all the bloody boxes, even the ones I do not want to tick. They're not my boxes at all, but I still have to tick them. And I think, again, that really hit me in the face towards the end of my career, when my boss at the time, lovely, lovely person, really great academic, encouraged me to apply for a promotion. And she said, well, Paulina, you have such a good publication record. You are doing tons of stuff. The impact work you're doing is at professor level. I know professors who don't have the same achievements in terms of impact that you do. And I was at that time, I already thought, I'd already made the decision, I'm leaving. But she said to me, do you know what, even if you do that, but maybe if you come back at some point or whatever, it's still beneficial for you, because they'll still have to put you at a higher grade. They won't be able to employ you at the same grade, and I think you should be at a higher grade. And I thought, okay, I guess she's right. Great, okay, if she thinks so, I'll do it. And of course, it's a longer process. Of course, it takes time to apply. Of course, there's a lot of paperwork, right? It's not a thing you do in an hour. And I remember I had a meeting with the head of the department at the time, and this person said to me, we had a meeting, and it was like, oh, it's just a meeting to review your application and help you with stuff. And the first thing this person said to me was like, okay, prove to me, why should you get a promotion? And I thought, I don't see this as very supportive. So anyway, I started saying, well, because of this, and this. Okay. Yeah, okay, well, I think you need to rewrite this. I think you need to add that. And yes, okay, I'll support your application. And I'm thinking, okay. So that didn't make a particularly good impression on me, I have to say, because nobody told me this is going to be a prove yourself conversation, right? And it appeared that is a prove yourself conversation, a prove yourself bloody again conversation, as if you don't have my publications and all the stuff, right? And what really got me, I think, there were also, there was a question about your circumstances, whatever you call them, special circumstances. And I kind of put, single parent, have a child that needs extra support, all the things. And I don't feel that was taken into consideration at all in evaluating my application. And the thing that really, really, really got me was I didn't tick a sub-box, apparently. A sub-box, a sub-criterion under one of the criteria. And the feedback I got was that I haven't done enough what do they call it? God, I can't even remember the language now. It was something about internal engagement or internal, I don't know. It was, in other words, what they were saying was, you've not sat on any committees, you've not ran any reading groups, you've not done enough within the university. And the fact that I did so much high profile impact work outside, the fact that I needed to bloody travel all the time with being a single parent with a kid who was not well, the fact that I knew that it was my input, that, the fact that I had whatever you call them, the projects that they choose as impact cases, impact case under my belt, and I knew that it wasn't, of course, it wasn't just me that was working on it. There was a team, but I knew that my work really contributed towards that, and I knew that I'm a person who can get us into these places as well, into the, into the media, into into policy kind of organizations, all the kind of stuff. And I just felt all of that was just completely written off because I haven't sat on any bloody committees that I never wanted to sit on and was not even a requirement anywhere formally. So I was thinking, right, okay. And I think at the time I was already, as I said, I'd already made the decision, but this really brought it home that I had 100% made the right decision, and I am not staying in this organization any longer because it doesn't support me, it doesn't support my talents, it doesn't value me. It's a really tough gig to keep getting research jobs, especially when you're quite specialized, especially when you're quite high up the ranks in terms of your salary, and there are younger people who are coming in fresh from PhDs who can do similar work. and I just thought, and I was just feeling really vulnerable because at some point I also had to take a step back from full-time work. I just couldn't manage full-time work with what was happening at home. And
because this was what year?
Oh God, when did I start working part-time? I think it was 2019. I think it was 2019, 2008. Yeah, because I finished working at the university at 2018. I mean, the first time I finished. I finished working at one and I moved to another one. And that was a part-time position. And then part-time, and it wasn't enough to live on. A part-time academic salary for a researcher is not enough to live on. So I was dipping into my savings because of my difficult kind of family situations. I didn't feel I could work more because I needed to be at home. I needed to support my kid and fight for various things, basically. And I just thought, this really isn't sustainable. This really is not sustainable. I'm in my late 40s. I've got nothing to show for all that hard work apart from an excellent publication record. And who bloody cares about that? Apart from an academic employer, right?
I know.
So, So I just had this feeling like I've wasted so many years of my life being very devoted to this academic career that's just backfired, really, and not serving me in so many ways that I can't ignore it anymore. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, I think I totally resonate with what you were talking about them not valuing the things that you're most talented at as well. And I was a victim of the well, we can pay somebody else, who's fresh out. And actually one of my heads of departments used the phrase, we like them young and hungry.
Right. Yeah.
Which is horrifying, but yeah. So what did you do to kind of prep your way out? Like, when did you? Because this carried on past the beginning of the pandemic, didn't it?
Yeah. So I still during the pandemic. So that's the time when I was employed part-time at a different university. And I'll just give it a shout out because I think it's a great university, Glasgow Caledonian. And the people I was working with there were really, really great. The project was great. Loved it. So I was working part-time there, and then COVID hit, right? COVID hit. And as I said, I was dealing with a lot of, problems at home, basically. And when COVID hit, I was thinking, oh my God, I need to do something to keep myself in a positive mindset, because what I was doing to escape from this quite difficult situation at home was basically, I've always been very sociable. So I was meeting up with friends, going out, having chats with people, and that would kind of help me keep myself in balance. And then all of that was suddenly taken away from us, right? You couldn't go out and socialize and so on. And I thought, rightio, right. You're a fighter, you're a swimmer, keep swimming. You need to keep something, you need to find something that'll help you, because this is not going well. What is going on in your head is not going well, because I was sitting there feeling like I'm a failure. I've not achieved anything. Nothing that I've done counts. I'm in a shitty situation. All the stuff. That's what was going through my head all the time. And that's when COVID hit, everything went online, all the coaches went online, all those free masterclasses. So I've always been quite a junkie in terms of learning. So I was working part-time, right? And it was COVID, there was nothing to do apart from garden. That was the first time my garden looked, and the only time my garden looked kind of half decent. And so me being me, I kind of used the kind of strategy of uplifting myself, and I went into learning and development, and I came across this course eventually called 28 Days to a Positive Mind. And I thought, oh, that sounds quite interesting. I liked the guy that was running it. He did a free masterclass, all that kind of stuff. And it appeared that he's a hypnotherapist. So as part of the course, he was doing hypnosis sessions, like group sessions on Zoom. And I didn't even know, I had no idea what hypnosis was. I had no idea you could do it online, because I had no idea in general. I had just no idea at all. So I was really open to it, because I was like, whatever. I'm experimenting. I'm learning different stuff. Whatever, why not, right? And he was doing these sessions, and it really kind of, this one session especially really took me to this place in my head that it was a real experience. It was a real hypnotic experience where I met a younger version of myself, however abstract that sounds. But it was so, and it kind of shook me. I was like, what the heck? What was that? What just happened? How did it happen? What is this? And I got really intrigued, and I got so intrigued that I went on to do a kind of just a short course to see what hypnosis is about. And then I was even more intrigued, and then I did another course. And then in the end, I just went for professional training, because I thought, well, even if I'm not going to use this is absolutely fascinating. And I think my researcher hat came on and was like, bing, 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 this is fascinating. I need to know. And through that, really, I got into these hypnotherapy circles, and I just realized that, first of all, hypnosis is absolutely amazing. It's an absolutely amazing modality for solving so many problems that people struggle with for so many years, really, trauma, PTSD, phobias, fears, of course, all the stop smoking, weight loss, but also things like confidence, anxiety. It's just amazing. And just doing that course on the positive mind, which was actually based on a hypnosis method, on a technique that I now use in my work, right? And it just learning this hypnosis opened my mind so much to other things out there, because I think as academics, we can be so much in our head, so much in our analytical head, and so much in the constraints, and so much feeling like we're in this cage, basically created by this work environment, and we can't get out of it. So I just benefited from it so much. And I did have a blip, and this is where I'll mention the aphantasia stuff.
Yeah.
I did have a blip when I started training in hypnosis, because I'm one of these people who cannot visualize. So I don't have mental imagery in my head. When I close my eyes and I try to imagine something, picture something, I don't see anything. While the hypnosis training I was doing was highly, highly visual. Like it was all based, a lot of it was based on visual techniques. And
so when you met the earlier Paulina, was she just a voice?
No. Now that is the surprising part. That is the surprising part. So I would have sworn I actually saw an image. I would have sworn it was actually a picture. But now that I do research into aphantasia, I understand this much more. And I think that it was a picture, because when you're in this, I would say I was in this hypnagogic state. Now that is a bit of a, kind of, that's a bit talking shop. But basically, sometimes when you're in hypnosis, it's a similar state to when you're falling asleep.
Yeah, right? Like they say when you wake up, sometimes you see things that aren't really there because your REM hasn't really like clicked off or something.
Yeah. So it is this state between being kind of awake and being in a dream. And it so happens that I have visual dreams, and many people with aphantasia do. So I think I was in so deep during that session that my mind actually created an image, but it was very untypical that my mind created, it was like lucid dreaming, that my mind created an image that I was actually calling in, rather than just some kind of random image that, random stuff that comes to you in dreams, right? It's completely uncontrolled, unless you've mastered lucid dreaming, which I haven't. But I think that's why it freaked me out so much, because I'd realized I had aphantasia a few years back, right? But I never thought of it as a problem or a barrier or whatever. I just thought, oh, okay, so I'm different again. Oh, well, nothing new, right?
It's like when you meet someone and you're like, in what way are you weird? I'm weird in the following ways.
Yeah, exactly. And then a few years later, I realized I also had ADHD, right? So I thought, okay, I already know my brain works in different ways than the majorities. Which is why I like supporting people with unique brains, as I say, because I kind of get it. I know how different our ways of thinking and feeling and so on can be, right? But but that was just fascinating. And then I came across this barrier of, oh my God, I can do these things for other people, but when they're doing these things for me, it just falls completely flat. It doesn't work because I cannot do what they are asking me to do. I cannot feel into this process. I just do not have the same abilities, and it's kind of throwing me off. And in the beginning, it threw me off so much that I stopped training because I was like, oh God, no, maybe this is not for me, and I don't have to. And I didn't have this idea in my head that, oh yeah, this is my new career. No, it was just like, I'm really curious. This is fascinating. I want to be able to do this.
Cool. Yeah.
But I got really discouraged, right? And to cut, a long story short, in the end, I did get back on the kind of wagon, and I did finish my training, and I did become a certified hypnotherapist. But because that was a barrier for me, and I understood that it's a barrier for other people, it came out during my training, the training that I certified in. I told the trainers from the beginning, I can't visualize this is going to be a problem. And they said, well, you might not be able to do what we're teaching. We'll see how that goes. We'll keep asking you, but we can guarantee that you're going to be a very well-trained hypnotherapist. You'll be able to do this and, achieve great results. And I was like, okay, that's enough for me. And during the training, they would ask me, they'd do a demo. It was like live training online, and they'd do a demo and they say, Paulina, so how was this for you? And I'd go, nah, hasn't worked, couldn't get into it, whatever. And other people were like, amazing, oh, is it life-changing, even during the training? And I was a bit jealous. But anyway, because I started talking about it, other people actually started getting in touch with me saying, I'm the same. I thought I was the only one. I'm the same. I was going to say,
I feel like you've been a qualitative researcher in this space now.
I've always,
you were gathering like everybody's thoughts about it. Is that true?
I didn't realize that. Well, do you know what? When people started getting in touch and saying I'm the same, I thought, so it's a problem. It's not a problem that's recognized. That is a research project for me. Of course.
You can take the girl out of academia, but you can't take
Yes.
academia out of the girl.
That's what I was saying. I was like, ah. But you know what? But in the end, I think it's working out really well for me in those terms, because I am in a unique position where I'm in the hypnosis world as a practitioner. I didn't come to it as a researcher. I came to it as a practitioner. So I'm a practitioner who works with others, right? But at the same time, I do have this academic background. I do have this understanding. I do have this training. And I can run my own projects. And basically, I've been running this project for I think 3 years now. Without funding, it's quite challenging. I've been learning from it. And I'm now sharing my knowledge in the hypnosis world. And I'm kind of building a profile around that, because I've got something unique to offer to that world. And as I say, I've always been very, very much into applied research. I believe that we do research to change things, right? We want to use it to inform, to change, to innovate.
Yes.
So I was really chuffed that, I'm a fairly new hypnotherapist. I think it's now been 3 years since I certified, but I've already, I'm going to be, I've already spoken at 2 major conferences. So I was a speaker at the UK Hypnosis Convention last year. I'll be speaking this year as well. I was a speaker at Hypnothoughts Live in Vegas this year, which is the largest hypnosis conference in the world. So I was
amazing.
Thinking, yes, I
saw your Las Vegas pictures.
Yeah. Crazy place. But I was thinking, this is really cool, because I've always loved presenting, I've always loved research. And for me, it's just like, woo, it's the fish back in the water.
Yes. I can't see why you couldn't get funding for an innovative project. Because, I'm watching this Innovate UK fiasco, right, where they were going to give 50 women £75,000 each, and they gave 25. Don't know what happened with that, but they're listening. And I saw, and with my own eyes, because I was like, you know what, I'll help you with the data. All these women were gathering data on what happened. It was over a weekend. I was on their WhatsApp group, and then Innovate UK on a Sunday said, we're really sorry about what happened. We're looking into why 25 weren't given, why it was only 25 and not 50. Where are the other 25? And then on the Monday, they shifted gears. And I was like, wow, look what women can do when they collaborate with each other and coordinate.
Yeah.
Incredible. So, I'm seeing them listen to female entrepreneurs in a way that they haven't before. Okay. So we need to talk more about whether this is a possibility, and maybe I can connect. I love connecting people.
Yay! So do I. I'm actually collaborating with some academics, who are, because I think this was also what happened, because towards the end of my time in academia, I was kind of thinking, maybe I should just shift gears, because I love research. I do. I don't love the institution as much, but, of course, the university gives you a bigger scope for doing research than any other organization, really, unless it's very kind of, unless it's very industry oriented, right?
Yeah.
But I remember I was trying to get a small grant, a very small pocket of money. I think it was £1,500 towards the aphantasia and hypnosis project, and I was in the Department of Social and Political Sciences, right? But this project was apparently for anything, any innovative research, anything that won't get funded anywhere. And so I put it in an application, and it didn't even go into the scheme, because the person who would have had to sign it off said, what does this have to do with social sciences? I'm sorry, but no. And I was thinking,
that's so annoying.
It is so annoying. And I think, in terms of academia, it's just like, okay, so my background is in social sciences. Most of my publications are in international migration. Who is going to fund me for doing aphantasia and hypnosis research? When I'm not a psychologist by background, I am not a neuroscientist. So, so I'm trying to, collaboratively apply with somebody who is in academia, and we shall see, because I think it's a really interesting area, and I think it's really important, exploring people's imagination and how that impacts on the whole cognition and how they experience things. And I think there's definitely scope for research there.
Yeah. I mean, my partner's in cognitive psychology, so, and works a lot with children. So, it might be. And he works a lot with virtual reality, which, is kind of like an interesting thing as well, because those things aren't really there.
Yeah. I think that's one of the directions to go with this. So,
So I remember also another kind of now that like I'm linking all your qualitative work, I remember for your 50th birthday, you talked to 50 people. For my
I wanted to.
I love that though. I thought it was so cool. And then for my 50th, which just happened in July, I was thinking I want to run a 5-day challenge. Each day would be a decade. Like day 1 would be the 70s. Day 2 would be the 80s, right? And so on and so on. And it's really about a deep dive into like what makes you happy, where's your passion, what things have you succeeded in that haven't been valued, what is a possible future for you. Because I think a lot of people say, well, I'm this age and I'm too old, to leave academia and do something different. And I want the 5 decades to be, yes, you can. Do you know what I mean? That yes, we can. And so that's what I'm going to do. So I'm picking out songs from every decade as well.
Yes, you can songs. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, I think most of them are like by women, they're going to be a lot of like women's songs or maybe Latino songs as well. But if I ask you, what's on your playlist, or have any songs been, like what are you listening to or anything like that?
So I am quite particular in those terms because I listen to very little music, but I sing a lot. So random songs just pop in my head and I walk around singing, walk around the house singing. And my kid always looks at me and says, living with you is like living in a, what do you call them, musical.
That's kind of a compliment.
I just suddenly burst out in a song, and I don't know why, but the one that has recently been playing in my head all the time is the and of course I forget words all the time as well, so there's an added element to this, but I love you, baby, I want you, baby, and so on.
I love it.
And I have to say, but do you know what? Maybe I'll mention one thing, because that's one thing I recommend to clients, to people who struggle with negative thinking. Maybe I'll just give them a little tip that if there's a thought that keeps coming to you over and over and over, and it's things like, I can't, or I'm not enough, or I'm too old, or whatever, if that thought is coming to you and kind of going round in circles in your head, stop right there, and pick a song. This technique, I picked it up from another ADHD coach, Diane Wingert, and she calls it the hit list, shit list. So basically, when this hit thought that keeps coming to you comes to your head, or shit thought, sorry, choose a hit that you're going to start playing in your head or singing every time that comes. And it can be something that completely opposes the song. It can be something silly. It can be something uplifting, just something else. And get into the habit of doing that, and you'll realize that it kind of disassociates you from the thought and helps you get over it. So I would actually say, that is a good wider technique. It's not just pick a song that, makes you think of leaving academia. Pick a song that will help you get out of your negative thinking loop.
Yes.
And play it.
I love that. Well, I do have a playlist on YouTube that is all about like quitting your job, but a lot of it is like, freedom, like or like respect, right? RESPCT, it's all
right,
very
we are the champions.
empowering. Yes, it's empowering. I mean, there is like, take this job and shove it. You need that song. I ain't working here no more, right? You need that kind of thing as well. So Paulina, I want you to tell everybody where they can find you and how they can get help from you. Like where are you nowadays, and where can people find you?
I am everywhere, baby. No, so I've got a website that I'm still developing, but the basic information is there. So that's www.paulinatrevena.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn under Dr. Paulina Trevena. You can find me on Facebook under No Woo Woo. And I think it's No Woo, Aphantasia, ADHD, and Hypnosis with Dr. Paulina Trevena. I need to think of a shorter name. And and
at least it doesn't have a colon. Remember when we used to write papers with a colon in it?
I think not a colon, no, just a dash. I had to think for a moment, what was a colon? No, just a dash. Yeah. No, and if anybody needs, because what I specialize in is supporting people with, as I say, unique brains, ADHD, aphantasia, because sometimes people with aphantasia get locked in their head and all the things that they cannot do. And I work using a mix of kind of coaching and hypnosis. If somebody is open to hypnosis, it's nothing scary. Honestly, I just talk to you guys. And you do the work. I don't control anybody's brain, by the way, just to bust a little myth. And and I can help with anxiety, fears, phobias, fear of career change, all the things, and especially things like negative thinking loops. I very much like teaching people how to shift to a positive mindset, because I found that was the one thing that really changed my life. And hypnosis kind of accelerated the changes, but it was just realizing that you don't have to believe your thoughts, that most of them are actually rubbish. And you just need to change the way you think, and then you can get unstuck and move on in your life. So yeah. And if anybody is a hypnotherapist and interested in how to work with people who cannot visualize, follow me as well, because that's something I train in now.
Yeah, so what have your master classes or trainings, what have you been training on actually and doing the workshop? The things that you love doing, like presenting, what kind of things do you present that people could maybe book you?
Yeah, so I do workshops on things like overcoming negative thinking, on hypnosis, like an introduction to hypnosis, what it is, just to kind of show people and explain what it is, on creating your dream life. I do trainings on hypnotherapists, on how to work with people who cannot visualize. And I've forgotten what else I do, actually.
Follow on LinkedIn and you can see everything that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been such a great conversation. And thank you for sharing some positive mindset ideas as well. I'll definitely be using those, and the feedback loop of like negative thinking. I definitely think a lot of people in the audience can relate to that.
Yeah, and especially I think in the academic environment, which is just hypercritical, right? As we said, they will not necessarily value your strengths, but they will definitely pick up on your weaknesses, every single one. And it's something that at the end of the day makes you feel like, I can't do anything because I'm not good at this and this and this. And you forget that you're great at all that. So yeah.
What a good message to end on. Thank you, Paulina.
Thanks again for inviting me. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. Have fun.